The Pen BBS 355 is generally known as a syringe filler. Kyuseido's pen, the Kakari, uses the pump piston filler. And Conid's filling system is called the bulk filler, which is actually the coolest name. And I'm going to do a quick comparison between the three of them. But first, I'd like to set a premise that all fountain pens are vac fillers unless you're using an eyedropper or a cartridge. Whether you're twisting a knob on a piston filler or a converter, or you're squeezing a bulb or a sac, you're always creating a vacuum to get ink into the pen and then capillary action to get ink out onto the paper. For example, in the case of a piston filler, as you draw the piston back, you create a vacuum to suck ink in. But the problem is the mechanism takes a certain amount of space and you only have capacity for ink on this side of the piston. But in the case of these pens, you pull the piston back like a syringe, like an ink alcoholic, and it creates a vacuum here and has all this space here for ink because the rod isn't in the way, it's sticking out back here. So really, for all three of these pens, it's a what do you do with the piston rod after you fill the pen filling system. For transparency, I received the pen from Kyuseido to do a review, and I also did the instructional video for their webpage. I was originally going to do the review with the Conid Minimalistica, but the cap and the clip bothered me so much I didn't feel like I was going to give it a fair review, so instead I'm using a Conid Kingsize. From the user's point of view, all three pens function like this. Looking down the pen, you turn the end knob counterclockwise so that you can pull the piston rod all the way back to the end. You continue turning counterclockwise to conjoin the piston rod with the piston itself, and then you push it forward and that expels all of the air. Now you've created a vacuum, and as you pull back, the ink enters the pen. And now with the pen full of ink, you turn the knob clockwise to engage the piston into the back of the pen and to separate the piston rod from the piston. This allows you to push forward on the separated piston rod into the barrel. Pretty neat. Just remember the space that rod occupies will displace that amount of ink or air from your barrel. So you may want to push that rod forward as you're holding the pen over your bottle of ink. Then continue turning the knob clockwise to close off the pen. In all three pens, the rubber-covered end of the piston rod is used as a stopper to separate the ink in the barrel from the section. This replicates the Japanese eyedropper system, and it keeps ink from burping into your cap for any kind of temperature or pressure changes. Both the Conid and the Pen BBS 355 use threads to conjoin the bottom of the piston rod into the piston that's attached to the back of the pen. This is the end of the piston rod on the Pen BBS 355, and you can see the threads in it, and it threads into the piston unit that is normally attached to the back of the pen. In contrast, the Kakari has rod spokes that lock into J-hooks that are attached to the piston. Both the Pen BBS 355 and the Conid use a latching system to connect the piston to the back of the pen. The Conid is nice because its latches are engineered to slide smoothly in without any extra wiggling, which is nice. And the Kakari straight up just threads back into the back of the pen. With the Conid Kingsize flat top on the left, the Kyuseido Kakari in the middle, and the Pen BBS 355 on the right, the Kakari is the shortest of all of them capped. For the 355, it's mainly that extra acrylic on the top of the cap. Uncapped, again, the 355 and the Kakari seem to be about the same size, and where the striking difference on the Kingsize is the much larger size 8 nib. The section on the Kingsize is slightly longer with the threads actually on the section. And as to be expected, the overall pen is just girthier along with the section. All three pens seem sturdy. The fit and finish on the 355 seemed a little bit lighter and more plasticky and a little bit rougher. For instance, inside the titanium cap of Kakari, there's like an inner liner of Delrin. This makes capping smoother along with protecting the threads on the pen. And the seamlessness between the titanium and acrylic on the Conid was excellent. They all felt comfortable in hand when they weren't posted. The Kakari and the Conid were both a little heavier, but all three posted were a little ridiculous. Not just because they were long and back heavy, but also putting the cap back there ended up covering up that blind cap. Remember, all three pens need to have their blind cap slightly turned open so that you can write. The exception is the Conid. It has a small little ink reservoir there that is beyond the stoppered end of the barrel. So even if you don't unscrew the blind cap, you still get that little bit of ink that goes into the section. And if you're going to fly or something like that, you can drain the ink out of that little reservoir and then restopper the rest of the barrel. So now, like the other two pens, that ink won't go down into the section. That's pretty cool. The piston rod on the Conid there in the middle was thinner than the piston rod on the Pen BBS or the Kakari. But the Pen BBS piston rod displaced less ink than the other two when it was pushed back in. The spokes on the Kakari serve two unique purposes. First, you can kind of use it to mix up glitter ink in your barrel, and you can stop your draw of ink at any point in the barrel and unhook those spokes for the J hooks, and then you can have a partial fill. This is useful if you change inks often or if you want to have your center of gravity to be more toward the front of the pen. Let's talk nibs. Pen BBS is one of my favorite companies and I have a lot of their pens, but I find their nibs to be kind of meh. All their standard stainless steel nibs seem to write the same. Smooth and it gets the job done. Their calligraphy nibs are pretty fun, but basically whenever I get a Pen BBS, I end up sticking another nib in here. In this case, I jammed in a Pilot Parallel. The Kakari nib is a 14 karat gold stamped nib that is made for Kyuseido. It's Yovo compatible, but it is not a Yovo nib, so you can easily switch it out with a Yovo nib if you'd like. This was by far my favorite nib and the most fun to write with. Take a look at the tip. It almost has kind of a nag shape to it. Conid has a giant number 8 titanium Bach nib. I love big nibs and I cannot lie, and this was really fun to write with. Sheer surface area of this nib kept it nice and juicy. Though it's a great nib, I can't duplicate this experience in other pens. Okay, let's check out how they write. I tested all three on all kinds of paper, to include Tomoe River, MD paper, Graphilo paper, and some bank paper. Here as I'm filling the 355, you can see I draw the ink several times to get the best fill that I can. Since there are different size, width, and composition of the nibs, it won't be a completely fair comparison, but to keep it on the same level, I used J.R. Bond's Violet Pensée for all three nibs. All three pens were fairly wet and wrote smoothly. The Violet Pensée is a pretty lubricated ink. This is the Pen BBS on old Tomoe River paper. This is the Kyuseido Kakari on some random notebook. I don't remember which one it is. And this is the Conid Kingsize on Midori MD paper. All three pens wrote where any fountain pen enthusiast would love to have them. Okay, let's compare the pens. Okay, for the pros for the Pen BBS 355, one of them, a very big one, is the price. It runs somewhere between $40 to about $55 online. And even if you do have the disposable funds to be able to buy the other two, you might want to buy this one to check out to see if you even like this kind of filling system. Pen BBS is a very reliable company, and many people like their very smooth nibs. You can completely disassemble the pen. All you need is a very small, inexpensive 5/16 wrench. The cons for the 355 is mainly the fit and finish is not nearly as nice as the other two pens. Personally, I feel the Pen BBS nibs a bit boring, but you could try getting one of their calligraphy nibs, and they also sell gold nibs on occasion. As for the Kakari, the CNC lathe cast acrylic, and the titanium cap and end cap protected by Delrin, and the stainless steel mechanics, the fit and finish on this is beautiful. The 14 karat gold nib is kind of an interesting cross between like an Asian and Western nib, and its housing accepts Yovo number 6 nibs. And as an aside, I accidentally met the owner of the factory, and he's a perfectionist, and he also makes many other fine luxury pens. As for the cons, the minimalist look without a clip bothers some people. If rolling off a table is one of your worries, Kyuseido now makes a faceted cap. And like all luxury pens, if you disassemble the pen, you invalidate their warranty, which has never really stopped me before. And the price is $600, which puts it into the luxury category. As for the pros for the Conid, the number 8 nib, that real estate there after the section really makes it a juicy rider. It is also a CNC lathe cast acrylic, and the titanium and the acrylic just meld together. The fit and finish is wonderful. And it's made to disassemble. You can go to the website and get their tool and check out all their videos to help you out. And the top con for the Conid is the price. The starting price for the body is 995 euros. This does not include the nib, and you must buy the nib when you buy the pen. So as of the last time I think I saw them for sale, you're looking at something north of $1,200. And another con is that it is a Bach number 8 titanium nib, which you can get on other pens for far cheaper if you wanted that writing experience. And these pens are hard to get. As soon as they end up on Pen World's website, they sell out very quickly. Their giraffe model has been a grail of mine for many years. I'm beginning to think maybe I only dreamed of them and they don't really exist, kind of like a unicorn. So if money is no object, I would get all 3 pens. Every single one of them is a joy to write with. But if money is no object and I could only get 1 pen, it would hands down be the Kakari. It's always about the nib, the heart of the pen. I got one of his tricked out flex nibs. It's a supple, agile, snappy little nib. So for me, no matter the filling system or what it's like, it's always the nib.